Welcome everyone. My name is John and I'm one part of the marketing team here at Wavelink. Today's InfoByte session is a zero-day attack trust in FortiWeb. Like many organizations, Fortinet hosts its primarily web presence on a public cloud platform, taking advantage of AWS's scalability and efficiency. Fortinet also leverages public cloud to deploy bespoke applications to support specific workflows, taking advantage of both open source and commercial off-the-shelf software. So today we're joined by Simon Bray. Simon is the Cloud and Alliance Manager at Fortinet, driving successful outcomes for customers, partners, cloud providers, and alliances. And we're also joined by our very own Forti guru here at Wavelink, Rod Christie. Rod's responsible for identifying and nurturing potential security customers and working with Fortinet and channel partners to secure new customers on the Fortinet security fabric platform. Just some housekeeping before we kick off. The team here love questions, so please use the question box within the toolbar and we'll address them at the conclusion of the presentation. Today's session will run for approximately 15 minutes, leaving 30 minutes, leaving 15 minutes for Q&A. In saying that, we'll kick off and we'll chat to you all again shortly. Over to you, Simon.
Thanks for that, John. Well, as John mentioned, firstly, thanks everyone for joining. My name is Simon Bray, and I'm the Cloud and Alliance Manager for Fortinet. So as mentioned, we're going to take about 30 minutes today. What we're going to do is go through an introduction to our FortiWeb web application firewall. We're going to be talking through some customer challenges, a little detail on our service offering, and we're also going to have Rod go through a quick demo and some of the purchasing options available for customers. Now, I really want to start with, I guess, framing some of the customer conversations that we're having recently. And I guess all of them are very conscious about what they're seeing in the papers. And certainly data breaches for customers is a really major concern. I'm sure we've all seen recently that there's some articles around DFAT, and even just doing a search in the last couple of weeks, you can see a few that have come up in front of us here. Facebook, I'm sure everyone's quite familiar with that. But certainly if we look at, what's the pattern and why is this kind of becoming a challenge for customers? Well, actually, if we rewind the last 10 or so years, we can actually see what's happening. Now, what you can see in front of you here is a data representation of the number of records that have been breached and the company name. Now, down the bottom right, we've got the US military, who had 76 million records breached in 2009. We had Heartland, which is the pharmaceuticals in the States, at around 130 million. But let's fast forward another 4 years. And what we can see is actually a lot of those security breaches and data breaches are really growing in intensity, right? Now, if we look at today, what we can see is actually this problem is getting far worse for customers. It's not only the number of breaches that we're seeing, but also the size and the scope. Now, what's really happening is that customers have got this larger digital attack surface. Threats are becoming far more sophisticated. There's a lot more complexity in their ecosystems, and they also have things like regulatory compliance that they need to be concerned about. Now, you might be asking, why are we talking about data breaches in context around web applications? Well, Verizon just released a report back on the 13th of May, just a few days ago, I should say. The eye-opening statistic around this is that attacks on web applications represent around 39% of all data breaches. They also go on to say that protecting web applications in the cloud should be a primary focus for customers. So the question is, we know that there's this big emerging threat coming. We know that web applications are one of the primary sources of data breaches. So how do we go about actually protecting web applications? Well, customers have the ability to deploy what's known as web application firewall. And basically what this does is it sits between your website or your web application or API gateway. And what it does is it effectively filters and provides the security layer to any web service. Now, particularly in the cloud, what we're seeing is, unfortunately, a lot of customers are either using nothing in the cloud, or if they are, they're using some fairly basic built-in capabilities from Microsoft or AWS. Now, the challenge with that is that they're very static in nature. They're actually quite cumbersome to fault find. It's a very manual process to do things like creating rule sets. And what we see is that generally customers don't like web application firewalls, right? So what we're actually going to be doing today is talking about our FortiWeb as a service offering. But generally, a lot of our features actually plug into all of our FortiWeb form factor offerings, which we're going to talk about today. Now, what we can actually do is remove a lot of those challenges that customers are quite familiar around traditional WAFs. So it's really about providing that additional layer of security. Now, you'll see at the top left there, we've got web security as one of our primary functions. But what we also do is things like API protection. Now, that's relating to things like any mobile applications that a customer may have. We also provide things like bot management. Now, there are good bots and there are bad bots. And what's really important is filtering out the bad ones and allowing those good ones in. And then finally, we can also offer customers DDoS protection. So that's really keeping an eye on things like inbound traffic monitoring for things like targeted attacks. Now, often we get the question around, what's unique about FortiWeb? And we wanted to kind of get this as one of the first slides to really help you articulate and understand what that kind of key difference is. Now, often we talk to customers, particularly around security, but also in the cloud, around this idea of good, better, and best. Now, you'll notice on the left-hand side that we've got a column, left column. Now, this is typically what we see traditional WAFs being able to do. And it's things like being able to block those known bad things, things like attack signatures, protecting against known malware, understanding and identifying protocols that look like they're abnormal. And certainly FortiWeb can do that, and we can do that very well. Now, if you look at the middle, however, we actually can take that one step further. Now, when we look at customers that have got things like legacy applications in their environment and they're wanting to move to the cloud, what FortiWeb can actually do is insert security features into those applications that might not natively have them. So what that means is we can do things like retrospectively protecting things like cookies, and fields that can prevent things like client-side tampering. We can insert things like header values to enforce browser behaviors that perhaps wasn't there. And also, of course, keep compatibility without actually altering any code within an environment. But actually what's really compelling for customers is on the far right-hand side there. And this is kind of where we introduce that idea of the best approach. Now, if we think about customers that have got their own website or their own web application or mobile applications, typically what we see is that customers are developing these in a CI/CD fashion. That basically means that they're updating them on a very frequent basis. Now, it's actually very difficult and costly to do penetration testing and code reviews with each and every release that they're managing. Now, what machine learning does is actually help shortcut this process. So within a very short space of time, we can actually create a really strong security policy around a web application and provide that blocking capability and that security based on just a very short period of time. Now, if we take that one step further and kind of understand, how is that really helping customers? Well, what we're seeing here is the old method, right? And typically we'd have developers that would push a particular code update. Invariably what would happen, however, is that a legacy WAF would actually block a lot of legitimate requests. The developer would then have to start troubleshooting that problem. They would then often need to do things like speak to the WAF administrator or speak to a security team. They would then spin a whole bunch of cycles trying to fault find and understand what was happening with that particular application. And then finally, the user would enjoy the benefits of that new code. Now, that overall process could take days or weeks, depending on how complex the web application is. What machine learning enables is for us to actually, with a very short space of time, provide customers with a secure web application. So we can actually reduce that time down from potentially days to as little as 30 minutes or maybe even an hour. Now, machine learning operates and needs to have 500 requests come into the application in order for it to actually build out its own security policies. So very, very quick in terms of how it operates. Now, FortiWeb comes in a number of different form factors. We've spoken about, all the features I've spoken about are available across all different form factors. But today we're going to be focusing on our SaaS offering. Now, this is particularly good for customers who are running websites or applications or APIs in the cloud. Now, if a customer is still running web applications on premises, then we recommend that perhaps they look at something like our physical appliance or maybe even a VM version. Now, run out between their public cloud provider, which could be either AWS or Microsoft. Now, FortiWeb as a cloud is a as a service offering. Now, what that essentially means is that the customer doesn't need to worry about things like patching or maintenance of the solution. It's super easy for them to consume, and there's no real need for them to understand the mechanics of the solution. So particularly good for customers who are moving into the cloud. They don't really care about how a solution actually functions. They're just looking for an outcome. That's really where our as a service offering is super strong, and of course for any workloads that are running in the cloud as well. In terms of our onboarding process, it's very, very simple. FortiWeb Cloud, we've got a portal which the customer can jump onto. They simply choose which region they wish to deploy the solution to, and within minutes they can have a website protected. The great thing is that we've got locations within Australia with Azure, AWS, and GCP. Oracle is coming, and as you can see there on the screen, literally the customer goes onto the portal, they choose their location, they punch in their domain details, and they can very quickly have a website protected, within potentially a number of minutes. Now, FortiWeb Cloud also offers a number of unique features as well. So we can actually leverage the content delivery network. Now, we do leverage the features of some of the cloud providers. And what this really does is provide an improved user experience for customers. So doing things like making pages, faster to load, and also leveraging some of the content delivery features of the cloud providers, right? Now, what I wanted to do at this stage, that was just a very quick kind of overview of our solution offering. What's important though, and I wanted to kind of pause on this slide for a couple of moments, was to really articulate the value proposition of FortiWeb on a single slide. Now, really it's about protecting applications and APIs for customers. Now, that can be deployed within either an on-premise or cloud environment. And it's really about protecting those line of business applications that a customer may have, or different customer portals and those sorts of things. The service can be delivered to any users anywhere in the world, of course, through any device that they may have. So that could obviously be, be it a mobile application or a website or anything like that. Now, the real kind of uniqueness of our solution, of course, is around this idea of machine learning and being able to drive automation and some of those security policy rule sets that can be built out based on a very short space of time. Finally, of course, our solution also integrates with our security fabric. So this means that customers who do have existing Fortinet solutions can actually integrate FortiWeb into their overall security fabric. We can then share threat intel between all of those different devices on-prem, and also we can provide some automation around that as well. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hand over to Rod, who's going to be taking you through a quick demo and also some purchasing options available to you.
Great, thank you, Simon. It's great to see how far the FortiWeb platform has come in recent years. I've always had a soft spot for the application. Let's have a look at some of the purchasing options that we've got for the cloud, FortiWeb in the cloud. Obviously, from a marketplace perspective in AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, we can purchase it from the marketplace. Obviously, we would prefer that you brought your own license. You'll obviously get more support from us and from Fortinet by doing that, which will help you. So let's have a look at how we would actually put some of these SKUs together in a typical bomb scenario. So we've got two different types of SKUs here, and we don't need to go in too much detail. The first 4 SKUs there are about sizing the throughput of your website. So the first thing you do need to understand is how much traffic is going to your website to gauge this correctly. And then the last 2 SKUs on this is about the number of websites that you have. So let's put a scenario together. For example, maybe we have a website that's getting around about 200 megabits of traffic to it. So bear in mind, these SKUs are stackable. Just like a lot of the other SKUs, and they're subscription-based. They're not the perpetual licenses that you may be used to. So thinking about subscription, it's for a 1-year period. So if we had one website with 300 megabits of traffic going to it, 200 megabits of traffic going to it, we would take 2 of the 100 megabit average throughputs. We'd take 2 times that SKU, and then we would add into it the second to last SKU, which is additional 1 website. Now, what does that mean? That means 1 DNS record. So that's your website. But it also covers 10 subdomains of that. So what is a subdomain? Let's have a look at a DNS record. We're talking about the A record in the DNS. For example, Fortinet.com is a DNS record. The subdomains would be docs.fortinet.com or cookbook.fortinet.com. So we can have 10 of those that we add in. Let's have a little look at how we could trial the product and how we can demo that. So there is a link here at the top there that you can see. Everyone can access this. This will take you into the FortiWeb Cloud demos side of things. We've got 2 options available to us here. We can either start a trial or we can explore a demo. So firstly, we'll look at how you can set up a free 14-day trial. It's for 2 weeks. For example, it's across all of the platforms. So maybe we'll just have a look at the AWS Marketplace as a quick example. Now, this is a standard page from within the AWS environment for when you're launching a new instance. It's the same as what you'd see if you were launching a FortiGate or a FortiManager, FortiAnalyzer. Obviously, in the top right-hand corner, you need to subscribe to it, but then it's still 14 days free for you. The pricing information, remember that while it's a free trial, you're still going to have to pay for the infrastructure costs. And at the bottom of the page there's a little bit of an indication of what those pricings will be based on a per unit. So let's have a look at the live demo. Now, this is something that we can do for you, for your customers. So if there's partners here today that have an opportunity, want to get us involved, there's some pretty cool stuff within this. We won't go into it in great depth, but we will just touch on a lot of the points that maybe your customers would be interested in. This is the first page of the demo site. It's listing 3 different demos there. Each of them are in a different cloud environment. You've got AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. And the first part of it is the domain name that we're actually putting through the FortiWeb. Then you can see the platform, you can see the region that it comes from, being the availability zone. And then we've got some stats that we'll look at on the next page. But at a high level, you get some of those key stats about block requests, etc. So let's have a look at the AWS demo. And this is a slide I like to bring up for the customers because it's full of color. It's got all the information on the front there. If we had a look at the top of that, we can see we've got how many blocked requests we've got so far for this particular website, how many requests are coming through, the amount of data, and we've got the infrastructure costs there as well. Below that, we've got the OWASP top 10 threats. Now, that's pretty cool to have a look at how many threats we've actually got coming through. Maybe just up a little bit, Simon. Thank you. The injection, you can see we've got an SQL injection, which is part of that top 10 threats. And if we were to click on it, we won't today, that would bring up a subset of the actual attack that was happening and give us a lot more details through that. We can see the threat history over time. The green bar is the average global threats, and the actual threats to our website is in the orange, and we can track that over time. A couple of the other interesting things on this page is the threat level score. You can see that we're quite low in this particular case. We've only got a few attacks that have been happening. And next to that is the throughput. Now, I kind of like this because a lot of administrators aren't quite sure how much traffic is hitting their website. So the orange is the HTTP, the green is the HTTPS, but we can actually get a real figure of how much traffic is coming through to our website, and that's really great for the developers and for administrators who are trying to work out, placement of their website and actually how much traffic. So in hindsight, you'd probably expect to see the reverse of that, the green being the high bar level and the orange being the lower, because most sites are encrypted today. And the last bit on this is the incoming requests. You can see we've got lots of green incoming, and we've got one or two attacks that have been blocked on the orange on the bottom there. And obviously we can see our services that we're licensed for. Just looking on the right hand side just quickly at that menu, you can see you can configure a lot of the rules, the bot mitigation, the DDoS prevention, the API as well. And yes, and then logs, we can go through and we can start analyzing some of those attacks in detail, which is very helpful. Last bit is that global section at the top there. We can then go through our administration. We can build templates for different websites with different attack signatures, different features. We can go in, we can build reports. There's a lot of things that we can do. We can assign administration to different users. And probably the last thing that I haven't touched on is that there is actually a MSSP option for this, where you can white label the service and you can then bring your customers in to within your own environment that you're managing as a managed service. So that's a quick overview of a quick demo of the environment. Look, if you've got any customers that do want to explore this, we're happy to demo this service for you and go into more depth into the particular environment. So I'll hand back to John now. I think we've got a question time coming up next.
Thanks for that, Rod and Simon. Yeah, if you've got more questions, please add them to the chat. I can see 3 at the moment, so I'll read out the first one for you guys. What is the difference today between a traditional website and a web application? It's the first question we received.
So look, I'm happy to take that one. So I guess the big difference is really how much functionality is on the website itself. So a good example would be a website that has, say, static data on it, so that it's the content itself is fairly static and there's not a lot of dynamic updates that are happening. A good example of a web application would be something like Facebook, for example, where it's actually quite interactive, and it's built for user engagement, and it's fluid in terms of how it builds itself, and some of the interactions and movements you can do within it.
Cool. Thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for that, Simon. I've got 2 more for the team at this stage. The second one is, what's the difference between AI and machine learning these days, and how does machine learning help us?
Yeah, good question. So look, the big thing ultimately is that in the context of FortiWeb, the machine learning is really helping us build out the rule sets and understanding the threats that are coming into the environment itself. So basically, what that means is that if I've got a particular threat coming into the web application or website, I can dynamically change those policy rule sets based on the threats that are coming in. I can also dynamically change my security rule sets based on any changes that are happening on the back end. So yeah, I hope that answers it.
Well, thanks, Simon. And last one for us at this stage. Does the website traffic need to be redirected to the FortiWeb?
It does. Yeah, Rod, you go for that one.
Oh, no, I was going to say, yes, it does. We do have to change the DNS record of the website to point it to the FortiWeb in the cloud, which is going to inspect the traffic and then forward it on. Now, I guess there's two scenarios. If your website is within the cloud environment that the FortiWeb is, which is what you would normally do, then the traffic's local to the site. Now, if it's forwarding it to an on-prem installation, which you can do, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, then obviously you've got traffic coming back out of the cloud. So there's sort of two hits on the costs there coming through. So some thoughts around that, and there's no reason why you wouldn't send it to your on-prem website, and some good advantages, particularly from a DDoS perspective. You've now got DDoS protection out in the cloud, so you're not actually having to do that halfway up your pipe to your website. So I'm hoping that answers that question as well.
That's great. Thanks for that, Rod. And that's all the questions that were asked today.
Cool. Well, I guess I can take over. Just in terms of a call to action, I thought what could be a good idea is, obviously the team at Wavelink are able to help, with any requests that you might have. A question that I do often get though is, how do I identify a customer? And I thought we could kind of build this into a call to action. And I guess the best way to answer that is really to help understand, those customers that you have. If you do have any that have got, say, a customer portal or some form of online presence, ones that might be handling things like credit card information or personal data, the verticals that are of interest, think about private health or even public health, things like FSI, of course, retail is a big one. And then customers that might have some specific requirements around compliance, for example, or needing things like PCI DSS compliance, where they will definitely need a web application firewall, or even customers that have got, their own website, they're doing a lot of updates to it, and, there's quite a dynamic nature to their website itself. Now, if you do have a customer that kind of fits into those categories, then please feel free to reach out to Rod or myself. And what we can do is help kind of guide you through that conversation and really kind of run through that. We can also do an internal enablement for you, help kind of facilitate that meeting. We can even do the customer meeting if you would like to. Now, the demo that you saw today is available for yourselves or any customer to go and have a look, to just get an idea of the look and feel of the solution itself. So you can see the link down the bottom there, so FortiWeb-cloud.com, and from there they can access the live demo, or they can also go through to the free trial offer from there as well. Okay, John, over to you, mate.
Cool. So this is an ongoing thing, Info Bytes. Every month we'll host a new session. Today's focus was on the sales and marketing elements of FortiWeb. However, next week, same times and day, we have the technical version where we dive a bit deeper. So if your team members are not registered yet, you can do that via the QR code on the screen. The link and details will also be provided in the follow-up email from myself after this as well. And that's a wrap. Thank you for taking the time to attend our session today. You'll receive an email from marketing at Wavelink very shortly that will give you access to the recorded session from today. We'll also have a short survey capturing your feedback, helping us evolve these sessions as well. As Simon mentioned, you can contact Rod and Simon directly, and we'll have those details in that email as well. But other than that, thank you all once again, and looking forward to seeing you in our future InfoBytes sessions.
And thanks, John, and thanks everyone else for joining. Appreciate it.